Welcome back to On Texas Football. I'm Jeff Howe, joined by Gerry Hamilton and CJ Vogel. Time for this week's edition of the Recruiting Breakdown. Got the Arkansas visitor list and recruiting tidbits to talk about. But before we go any further, Gerry, let's thank our sponsor for the Recruiting Breakdown. Anytime we have the Recruiting Breakdown, it's brought to you by our good friend Mark Saunders.
One of the longtime sponsors of On Texas Football, and we thank him every week when we do this show. When it comes to protecting all your stuff, wouldn't it be great to have one place that protects it all? Here's some good news. Texas All-State agent Mark Saunders serves the Austin and Round Rock area and the entire state of Texas. That means he's the only insurance agent you need. Everything from your home, car, and boat to your motorcycle, RV, and very importantly right now, that ATV. It's hunting season, as many of these Texas fans know. Call Texas All-State agent Mark Saunders' office today, 512-218-8571. Here's the On Texas Football guarantee. With Texas alum Mark Saunders' 35 years of experience, you will be in great hands. That's the one thing we will tell you. Many On Texas Football community members have given Mark Saunders a call to set up all their insurance needs. Again, give him a call today, 512-218-8571.
Gerry, this is the weekend we've been looking at that the staff has been looking forward to. Good kickoff time, should be a good crowd. A big official visitor list, and Gerry, one big addition, literally and figuratively, on the visitor list, confirmed early Tuesday morning by you over on Texas Football. Richard Anderson scheduled to come into town. Yeah,
scheduled to be in. Of course, I always go with this caveat on these visitors lists. Some things can change. You never quite know. But as of right now, Richard Anderson, five-star defensive lineman, LSU commit out of Edna Carr, same high school team as Hayward Howard Jr. They have a playoff game Friday night. He is scheduled to be in Austin this weekend, and that's a big one. Another LSU commitment, obviously, Bryson Martinez. That would be two LSU commitments to have official visits to Texas this weekend. But Richard Anderson, one of, if not the top defensive tackle prospect in the 26th class. He's number 2 or 3, depending on how people rank him. But CJ and I have both seen him. We'd both like him to lead us into battle and be the first guy off the bus for the team we play for, lead us into the alley. If there's going to be a fight, I want this guy on my side. That's what I'll tell you about him. Really talented athlete, 6'3", 340, 350, in that range. He's lost weight since last year. If you watch his tape, can still dunk a basketball. He's got some explosiveness to him. He's just got massive size to his frame too, and just that naturally strong build to him. But again, one of the best defensive prospects in the country, one of the top defensive linemen in the country. And the key here with Richard Anderson, and we'll talk about some other guys on this visitor list, is the whole key with where you're at if you're fighting to get a Richard Anderson to flip from LSU is who is the LSU coaching hire going to be, and what's the timing of that hire. We got signing day coming up in less than a month, 2.5 weeks at this point. So there's not a lot of time here for these kids who are midterm high school graduates. LSU's trying to get some of these kids, hey, don't graduate from high school and just hang out, in case the coaching hire takes a little longer. That's a tough spot to be in for these kids because their NIL clock begins once they enroll at a college. So convincing guys not to sign early is a tough chore sometimes and make that decision early. But the key here is he's scheduled to be in Austin this weekend for an official visit, and we'll see where it goes. Again, I think Texas is clear number 2 to LSU, where he's been committed a long time, just like Bryson Martinez, same thing. But it's all going to come down to who that LSU coach is and the timing of that hire. But if Texas gets both these guys on campus this weekend for official visits as is scheduled, that's a really good start because Bryson Martinez had a great unofficial a few weeks ago.
CJ, I want to go to the secondary with you. 2 defensive backs coming in on official visits. That's Teray Davis, the UCLA commit, and Josiah Villamil from the greater Houston area. CJ, what do you like about this secondary class and these 2 visitors in particular?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, Texas continuing to push the envelope at the cornerback spot. I like Josiah Villamil just for the sense that, look, he's very instinctive when the ball's up in the air. He can play the ball very well. It's something that Texas this year you're seeing not a lot of, and it's kind of been a rocky road, a roller coaster of sorts in the PK defense, right? At one point under Terry Joseph, it's saying, all right, where's more and more of the interceptions? 2024, there was certainly a lot of them, but you had a Thorpe Award winner. Where do you get guys that can get the innate ability and instinctual ability to make plays on the football? That's what I like there. And then Teray Davis, look, you see the size, you see the length. That's what a lot of Texas has been trying to recruit, right? Cade Phillips, I think Santana Wilson had a lot of size. Now can you get guys that have that adequate size that translate to seeing the field. That's going to be the big thing for me. But altogether, when you look at this Texas class at the moment with Smoke Matthews, with Hayward Howard, obviously, you have size and you have guys that can bump and run. And if Texas moves towards that, and not playing 8 yards off the ball at the cornerback spot, you have guys that you can make the combination of playing with size and length while also having ball instincts. And that's something that I'm quite a fan of. Both of these guys, I believe, have quite a lot of those skills at the moment.
Jerry, I want to go back to the trenches, and you mentioned the LSU coaching situation was one to watch for these guys. I have Teray Davis coming to UCLA. They still got to hire a coach. I talked to Caden Scherer after his playoff game, the offensive tackle out of Georgetown. He's not as concerned with the Stanford situation. Really just wants to see what the plan Kyle Flood has for him in his future. But Jerry, with both Georgetown kids, Texas catches a break. They get a Friday night playoff game. Yeah. Both Caden Scherer and Jet Walker planning on being on campus late Friday, early Saturday for their OV weekend. Jerry, it sounds like from everything I've heard in Williamson County, Texas is pretty close to closing the deal here.
Yeah, that's the kind of the word, right? With Scherer and Jet Walker both, right? And I know CJ's also, he's seen those guys and can add a little bit to those guys as well. But look, I think that Texas would like to have 2 more high school offensive linemen in this class. I think, and that doesn't mean they wouldn't go to a portal for a left guard or something and look at a couple of guard spots potentially. But I do think there is a need to have at least 4, maybe 5 high school linemen in this class. You got to keep developing high school offensive linemen. There's no way around that. If you're actually going to keep 15, 16 guys in your program, you have to have guys. You have to have those numbers and guys that are going to develop. And with the portal, with now rev share, not knowing, if all your backups are actually going to stay, you have to keep that number up and you have to keep really having developmental guys in your program. And Caden Scherer is a guy that, look, he's been on campus at Texas. I think he was at the Sam Houston game. He's been to a camp at Texas. Kyle Flood's kind of watched him in the last year and a half develop as a high school lineman. And he still needs time, right? 99% of these high school offensive linemen need that time. But he's a guy that Stanford saw a lot in when he committed to those guys over Northwestern. And a guy that Kyle Flood went to watch a couple of weeks ago, thus the offer and the OV being set up. And with Jet Walker, I don't think it's any coincidence that, the running back position at Texas, Jarrett Gibson in the portal, Ricky Stewart no longer with the program. Not sure what's going to happen there with his future, if he'll go into the portal, if he's going to continue to play football. We'll see over time there. But that's 2 running backs that are already gone. And Jet Walker's a downhill, tough kid. He's got a little burst, but he's a really good one-cut downhill runner. And Texas certainly has a need for that, CJ. That's proven out this year.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're going to add 2 guys with that size, look, not only does that help you running between the tackles, which has been quite an issue for Texas over the last 2 years, but it helps you in pass protection, right? It helps you with size and short distances. Again, issues in which the Texas running back spot just hasn't given you the answers that you'd hope to see, even with a return of a CJ Baxter and some of the guys coming into the program that, you don't have to move guys from running back or linebacker to give you looks at the position. It's still a work in progress, but right now, should Texas take both Derek Cooper and Jet Walker and end with those 2 guys in the class, there's a real boost to the size, the downhill running ability that have been absent so far over the last 2 years.
Jerry, overall, what do you because these guys that have offers right now that are coming in on this visit weekend, these are guys that were either spring kind of follow guys, senior eval type guys. And in the case of Jet Walker, he had the relationship with Chad Scott from when he was committed to West Virginia. So in a lot of cases, Jerry, these are the kind of the position coaches and the coordinators, kind of their guys that they've eyeballed and targeted and are bringing in. What's your take on just the whole class, this whole group of senior eval type guys Texas is bringing in?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting. There's more of them this class than last class, right? Last year it was Grayson Littleton was offered early November. Zealous Hicks, Texas knew was thinking about that reclass, but then you have to get to that point to where you can get out. So that was a little later, even though it was been planned, I think, at the start of his senior season. It still took a little later to play out. So there's more of those guys this year, but I do think this. I think that class Texas may take this class to 28 or 29 if they get all the right guys, if possible. I mean, look, there's a need for, if we just think about it, up to 1 more running back, 1 more receiver. Texas is still after Jalen Lott, by the way. 2 high school offensive linemen possible. another defensive lineman, another edge. They would love to have another linebacker. I don't know where that's coming from right now. We'll see. And 2 DBs. That class starts nudging up to 30 pretty quick in that scenario. Charlie Gillick was added as a tight end, right? So that number could push to 29, 30 very easily. So there was going to be more offers. We kept saying that on Coffee and Football and on our shows. We expect more senior evals because those numbers were going to creep higher. Because the reality with rev share, I think you're going to have a tougher time keeping some of your backups at Texas because there's going to be opportunities and potentially more money. Now that there's rev share with some of these other Power 4 programs, an opportunity to get on the field. I think the toughest thing in college football is going to be keeping those second, third team guys over the duration and convince them that development is the key. When now that rev share is there, it's going to be easier to go to another place, get on the field quicker, and probably get paid a little more NIL, honestly.
Go ahead. I can add just real quick on Gillick. I love what Texas has done at the tight end spot over the last 2 years. You look at Townsend and Gillick both having a number of snaps, even offers on the defensive side of the ball. That's the physicality that's been pretty hit or miss with Texas tight ends over the last 4 or 5 years. You watch the tape for both of those guys. They will hit you. And that's something that gets me excited about what this position could get looking like over the next 2 or 3 years.
Jerry, I want to get your thoughts on this, and CJ, your thoughts as well. But Jerry, I've felt like in the NIL era, you need less of a I hate the term rainmaker recruiter, but you need less of that guy on your staff. You better be able to identify talent, and you better be able to develop it.
Yes.
As rev share comes into play, Jerry, you think that's still the case, or is it going back to more of, no, you need a guy that maybe has some recruiting chops?
No, NIL is the rainmaker in recruiting, to your point. You got to have a good coaches, right? You got to have guys that can build relationship. The communication still matters with the kids and the parents. But if we're being real, NIL is the rainmaker. It's no longer a singular coach now. You look at an LSU with Frank Wilson. Does he matter for them in recruiting? Hell yes. Nobody's going to sit there and say no. He's had so much success. He's a New Orleans guy, former St. Aug coach. He's won some massive recruiting battles for LSU over the years. So we're not saying they don't exist. We're saying the absolute of those guys isn't what it once was. Jeff, development. At the end of the day, throughout all this NIL world we live in now, it's still kids, basketball, football. We just had Austin Gooseby commit to Texas basketball yesterday. One of the big reasons he picked Texas over BYU and over Duke and Baylor was he believes Sean Miller will develop him. That's still number one because you have to develop to get to the league unless you're a freak like Adrian Peterson. There's not many of those guys out there, right? You still have to develop as a player. So, Jeff, I think after, in this discussion, development is number one. You have to be able to, through NIL, obviously that's a big part of recruiting. You have to be able to show, convince, articulate how you're going to develop players. That is number one because all these kids' dream is still to be in the NFL.
CJ, anything to add there?
No, I think that hits the nail on the head. Look, in the day and age where NIL and rev share is evening the field, what separates you, right? It's getting to the league. It's taking the quote-unquote 3-star and putting them into an NFL draft position and doing so year in and year out. Look, I'd look at no better position right now than the Texas defensive line. The way that they've been able to churn out guys, even with staff turnover, even with new faces coming in out of the portal, what's been the constant? You're getting 2 guys drafted every single year. That's got to be attractive when all things are even. Yeah. So I definitely agree.
All right, Jerry, we've got a couple things to clean up before we wrap it up. But before we do that, one more time, let them know about our good friend Mark Saunders.
Call him in the read. No, seriously. Mark Saunders serves the Austin and Round Rock area in the entire state of Texas. That means he's the only insurance agent you'll need. Everything from your home, car, and boat to your motorcycle, RV, and ATV. Texas alum Mark Saunders is the guy to call. He can handle all your insurance needs. He has over 35 years of experience in the industry. Funny story, we did our 3-city tour, and our first stop we did with on Texas Football and Third and Longhorn was in Austin. And Mark Saunders was at that event, met multiple people. 2 or 3 of those people who are OTF community members ended up calling Mark Saunders, and he handled all their insurance needs for those people. The time for you to do the same if you need it. 512-218-8571. Give Mark Saunders a call, have that conversation, and he'll make sure he's the only insurance agent you'll need.
CJ, class of 2027 quarterback. I know you've got a nugget you wanted to pass along.
Yeah, Ty Knutson out of Smithson Valley down there in San Antonio. AJ Milwee stopped by school about 2 weeks ago. Of course, Knutson was on campus for the Vanderbilt game. He said right now he is a maybe to get back to campus for one of the Arkansas or Texas A&M games. Of course, with Kavian Bryant committed to Texas Tech. Texas continuing its evaluation of the 27 quarterback. By now, in most cycles, they have a verbal. Right now, I think they're still trying to figure out who their guy is. But Knutson from the area, a really talented football player, is one of those guys Texas is closely evaluating and is a maybe to return to campus for the final 2 games of the season.
Jerry, real quick on the class of 2027 big picture. Kavian Bryant commits to Texas Tech, 2 of the best safeties in the state. Eli Johnson to Ohio State, Jaquan Snell out of Waxahachie to Texas A&M. Should the Texas fans be worried about 2027, or is it still way too early?
It's early, but I will say there's some very aggressive moves being made by Texas A&M and Texas Tech, and you can't just say, oh, it's just early. That they're making some very aggressive moves right now to get ahead of the game, and part of that is they're having great seasons. Like Texas Tech is backing up what they did in the offseason. Mike Elko in year 2 is going to the playoff. If you're not trying to make hay on that right now, you're not very smart, and A&M clearly is trying to make hay on that right now. And the other thing is, both those guys know Texas plays the longer game. So it behooves of you to get aggressive early. Yep. I really believe that. And I think that's what we're seeing is in Texas, I think is going to go at their own pace on this. I think they'll get through the portal, the January portal, get to junior day, and then you'll start to see Texas get more aggressive. But I will say for the Texas fans out there to keep asking on our live streams, hey, should we be worried? I'm not saying you should be worried, but I do think we should acknowledge that Texas Tech and Texas A&M are being very aggressive early on in this 27 class.
Yeah, Oklahoma and Ohio State as well, both of them, 6-7 recruits in the class as well. So look, I think right now what we're seeing, and this has been a case since they moved up official visits, the recruiting calendar is moving further and further up. And with a lot of these schools, especially in the state, being uber aggressive early on with the future cycle, yeah, I'd like to see Texas push the envelope a little bit more at the moment.
Guys, one position I wanted to mention, CJ, I'll start with you, is edge. Got one target for each of you guys to talk about. Jamari Carlton, CJ was on campus a couple of weeks ago. Anything going on with the Baylor commit out of Temple?
Yeah, definitely need to be keeping a close eye on Jamari Carlton. Of course, he was down on campus for the Vanderbilt game a few weeks ago. Texas, it feels like when they want to re-engage with Jamari Carlton, he listens, right? He was someone that Texas did not officially have an official visit with in the summer. Texas reaches out when Alan Clark gets down there twice in the spring, and then boom, Texas is on the schedule for Carlton. Now it seems like Texas is re-engaging once again. It would not be a surprise if at any moment here in the immediate future or even in the next week or so, you see some movement there with Carlton. I'm not saying it's immediate, a flip to Texas or anything like that, but just something to monitor as communications start to ramp up once again between the Temple Star and the Texas staff.
And then, Jerry, what is going on with Zion Ely, the 5-star edge out of Baltimore, currently committed to Maryland?
A guy that Texas has, tried to recruit for over a year, essentially. Never really made much progress. Texas is trying to get him on campus this weekend. I think it's in the maybe. As of when this show's being cut, it's in the maybe area, right? It's not a yes, he's coming in. It's more in the maybe. Texas is trying to get him in. Mike Loxley getting an extension. Does that change it? That's very interesting, right? And with rev share now coming in, obviously Maryland can play the game more in the NIL world than they could before. Or are willing to, whatever you want, whichever path you want to go down with that. So I'm putting him in the maybe category right now. But for Texas fans, Richard Anderson was in the maybe category a week ago. And now he's in the scheduled to be here category.
All right, CJ, Jerry, thank you guys for the knowledge and expertise. As always, thank you to Matthew behind the scenes for producing it. Thank you to our good friend Mark Saunders, Allstate, for sponsoring it. If you want more actually up-to-the-minute recruiting info, get over to ontexasfootball.com. If you're not a member, just sign up using the promo code OTFOG, and that'll get you 1 year of access at ontexasfootball.com for $39.95. Make sure that you like this video and that you're subscribed to the On Texas Football YouTube channel. That way you're not missing any of our recruiting coverage all year round. For CJ, for Jerry, for Matthew, for the entire On Texas Football staff, I'm Jeff Howe. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And until next time, welcome.